Well, hello guys, welcome back. I had a little bit of a fight with a certain god today. No, it wasn't Loki. Ladies, you're going to hear me on this when you know there's no way in Hellenheim you were pregnant, but you are a week and a half late and you are just super bitch at this point because you feel like Macy's Day Parade float. So I had an argument with Odin. And then I felt really bad because I saw a video about the Greek gods, and it's done by this guy that explores mythology. He's not a believer, but he's respectful at least, which is rare. And, you know, I thought about how our gods went from having temples and having the good life and being respected to we treat them pretty much like we know they're gods. We know they're gods. We build them altars and everything else. But they're our friends, and we really, really don't know if they had that dynamic thousands of years ago. I'm sure they did, but they still had a temple, and you could still go to the temple and go, wow! They usually don't have that now. Thankfully, temples are being rebuilt, but, you know, the certain groups are trying to get in the way of temples being rebuilt because they don't want any other god except for their own god. Wiccans might like any religion and believe your religion is valid, but when you use it to stop other people from practicing their religion, then I don't like that at all. But in the video, he discusses how the Greek gods disappeared was not like this big war or anything, but they just faded because as Christianity, you know, monotheism came roaring across Europe, they replaced and forbade and did all these other things about these gods. And I'm not saying that to make you angry at Christians, but their view was that there's only one God and that God is perfect. Loki. And they saw that as the only way to see a god, and their argument against our gods was that, well, your gods are emotional, they have passions, they do the wrong thing, they're always off up to mischief. How could you worship a god like that? Well, because we can relate to those gods and they can relate to us, even though I lost my temper and was yelling quite a bit today because I was just feeling so miserable. You know, they understood. They weren't happy, and you can certainly hurt a god's feelings, but they understand. You're not yelling at absolute perfection that never loses his temper or anything else. And I remembered I used to ask questions that would drive priests crazy, like, if you are absolute perfection, that is all you know, how do you build garbage like humans? And a priest would look at me and I say, we fight, we kill, we rape, we pillage. How did absolute perfection make us? And the priest would just look like he was about to have a heart attack. But, you know, our gods I prefer because they're not perfect. I could never relate to the idea of a being of absolute perfection and everything is part of their plan, like natural disasters and the inhumanity of man against his fellow man. I'm like, I'd call bullshit. This is part of nobody's plan. How could a god of love, for example, want death camps? Where is that shit part of some divine perfect being's loving plan? Lookie's beggar. See, you were better off with us. And so it was just interesting that came up, and I said, you know, I thought of how hard it must be on the gods now, because they used to have temples. They were used to us going to them, to the temples, to worship them, and now they have to come to us and introduce themselves. It's not like we're equal with the gods now, though a lot of them are nice enough to treat us, you know, like we're equals, or as friends at least. But you know, they have to come to us now. They don't get a grand temple out of it. They know that's never going to happen. They get very paltry gifts compared to what they got before, and yet they still love us because they understand. And it just made me feel really bad for losing my temper, but they're all like, oh, that's okay. At least you talk to us. And I think that's the thing to remember. Our gods may not be these portrayed as these omnipotent, omnipresent, all-powerful divine beings, but at least they can understand us and empathize when we're hurt, and empathize when we lose our tempers, and empathize when we make mistakes, because they've done that. They've been there, and I'd rather worship a divine being like that than to worship this abstract concept that never makes mistakes yet invented humans. So drop the ball there, princess. I'm gonna get spited, I know it. But I just call it out. I think it's really not the god's fault. I think the people were like writing their book and they're like, well, this doesn't sound right. All the times he loses his temper and that doesn't sound right. Let's start making him perfect. He doesn't have any emotion except for love. Blah, blah, blah. And I think they got carried away. I think if we could see what the god originally looked like, people would be like, do you worship that? At least our gods make sense. So, and again, I'm not attacking Christianity, you do you, but it kind of made me think. I don't see Christians or Christianity as the enemy. The past is the past and has to stay there. But I also empathize, I think, a little more with our gods because I realize how hard it must be on them. They have to be almost totally dependent on us now. Gods don't depend on us, but you know what I mean. Traditionally, we depended and looked up to them, but now they're almost dependent on us choosing to worship them and not listen to other people or, go to the one true God or whatever. And it kind of made me a little sad for them, and I want to hug them all now. So it just random thoughts. I don't know. We're making rice. I made something, and that was part of why I was so angry. I made it last night. We cooked it for like an hour, and then I tried it today, and it was just dreadful. And I was like, rah, 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 rah. If you wanted something as an offering, because it ended up having to go outside, I said, why the hell didn't you just ask me? I would have, put forth my best possible effort. And well, mistakes happen on both sides. So if you guys like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I figured I'd bring that up because I know it has to be hard on our gods. They have to depend on us in a way to be in a mood to worship them, and you know what I mean. And to continue worshiping them now, more than ever before. We have a ability to toddle off in absolutely any direction. And I think they know it, and maybe that's why they seem so different with us than they did for our ancestors, or maybe they always have been like us, and we just don't know because we only have tiny little fragments left that don't tell us like what day-to-day life was with the deities. So again, if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.